The Great Deluge, fact or fiction? Bring together all the reasonable scientific hypotheses and legends of worldwide cultures about the Great Deluge. Is the Great Deluge, or a global flood of Noah's fame, fact or fiction? Is this idea remotely plausible? Yes, the story is real, except for an excessive amount of embellishment that humankind has added over the many millennia, which is dismissed. But find out for yourself by reading The Great Deluge, Fact or Fiction, by Douglas Ettinger. The global flood is a most certain story that caused mass destruction for humanity. However, today's most distant survivors place the story in the file of legends and myths. If it happened, it was a long time ago and could not occur again, unless you are worried about global warming and rising sea level. The story is terrifying and should be well forgotten. The flood story, as will be pointed out, includes other terrifying events, such as large-scale burning biomass, severe volcanism, earthquakes, and landmass elevation changes that occurred during this tragic event. Technically, at present, the story is a complete mystery because the water inventory for a fast global rise in sea level cannot be accounted for. Also, the so-called 40 days and 40 nights of rain in the Noah flood story, if true, is difficult to conceive of scientifically. This book will give accountable reasons for such waters and where they came from and went. For starters, if the ice sheets of Antarctica fully melted, the sea would rise 60 meters. If the Greenland ice cap fully melted, there would be a further 6-meter rise. That would amount to a total of about 200 feet. But what would cause a sudden rise in days and weeks instead of years and decades, as is anticipated with global warming? The reasons for the sudden rise are addressed. During the last glacial period, water was stored in the Northern Hemisphere's Laurentide ice sheet and Antarctica's thicker ice sheets, which are theorized to have caused a global sea level drop of more than 120 meters, or 390 feet, 22,000 years ago. As early man created settlements and small cities, especially close to ocean shorelines, plenty of opportunities arose for major flooding when the ice caps began melting during interglacial warm periods from 22,000 years ago to the present. But a horrific calamity known as the Great Deluge profoundly affected all forms of terrestrial life, including the advancing developments of humankind. This period is known as the Holocene extinction event. Almost every nation of antiquity perpetuated memory of this tragedy in tradition, ceremony, religio-social attitudes, art, and epic literature, and all regarded it as a major historical datum. The Earth was struck by an immense plasma discharge in its magnetically active North Polar region from a close encounter with a celestial body around 11,500 years ago. Globally cataclysmic effects brought an epoch of devastating cold, darkness, and flooding, known by geologists as the Younger Dryas. The epicenter of the plasma impact was predicted to be on the central portion of the North American ice cap, which was the previous North Pole. Then, a coronal mass ejection, CME, from the Sun collapsed the Earth's magnetosphere and surrounded the ecliptic plane of Earth, which then magnetically jerked and rotated. The coupling of two unaligned magnetic fields caused displacement of the crustal mantle portion of Earth around its liquid core, about 25 degrees of latitude, thereby changing the pole locations on the crustal surface. The spin axis tilt remained unchanged due to the Earth's iron core's angular momentum. However, the North Pole was relocated from south of Hudson Bay to the center of the Arctic Ocean, causing the eventual demise and melting of the Laurentide ice sheet. The Southern Pole was relocated from the Southern Ocean to the center of the Antarctica landmass, causing the sliding of the top layers of its ice cap, sitting on a slushy boundary into the ocean, thereby raising sea level and creating the Great Deluge. Other compelling evidence for the displacement of the Earth's crust and mantle unit and the global flood are the drifting of the residual magnetic poles seeking their natural spin axis location. The Siberian climate that was dramatically converted from grazing lands to a tundra with permafrost that can only be caused by a permanent latitudinal shifting. The quick burial and deep freezing of mammoths and other large animals that can only be explained by instant climate change. The bombardment of bolides and huge chunks of ice that created directional-oriented bays on the land surface. The stripping of surface rocks by plasma discharges, witnessed as stickmen on petroglyphs. Extraordinary accumulations of incompatible organisms, shells, birds, mammals, and plants that were encountered in drift deposits hundreds, even thousands of miles too far north of their present habitats. The stripping of surface rocks by sustained high-energy plasma discharge, witnessed as stickmen, and an extensive debris of ancient forests that were found in lands far too cold to support such vegetation. This period was responsible for the great loss of animal life, known as the Holocene extinction. The following geophysical changes were dated within the Younger Dryas geological period and simply cannot be coincidental. They are the formation of deserts, dried up rivers, lakes, and seas, disappearance of land bridges and land masses, crustal tilting and folding, lateral crustal displacement, seafloor collapse, sunken plateaus, bombardment of ejected bolides and chunks of ice, and elevation changes. This period had a great loss of life, known as the Holocene extinction. How could all these global manifestations, along with the Great Flood, occur over a very short time, unless there was a shift in the crust and mantle as a unit, caused by the Earth's geoid changing? Now is the time to choose a consensus, scientific hypothesis for all humankind that sweeps away the myths, legends, fringe arguments, and pseudoscience about this real worldwide catastrophe, the Great Deluge. Please read Douglas Edinger's book, The Great Deluge, Fact or Fiction, available at Amazon Books, which makes sense of and brings together all the reasonable scientific hypotheses and legends of worldwide cultures about this tragic event. Learn the truth about this embellished epic tale.